Greetings, folks. We're back. We're live from our home studio in Houston, Texas, and not far away from here is the space industry. Most of it's out in Webster, Texas, but it's not completely there. In fact, if you work in the space industry, you know there's a big operation for NASA in South Mississippi. They've got another one in Waco. New Orleans has a NASA office. And then, of course, obviously the Johnson Space Center, Houston, Texas, a very important place for people that work in the research, development, and the commercialization of the space industry. It's so fascinating. And we have a lot to thank to Elon Musk for helping to expand on an industry that's existed for decades, but it never really was privatized before until he got involved. Because I live in uptown Houston, and I ride an elevator about 30 times a day in both where I live, my apartment, my condominium, and here at the radio station, I get to meet a lot of fascinating people. And a while back, I met a guy from China, a Chinese national, who was apparently in town doing research for space, for rocket science research, if you will, for lack of a better explanation. In layman's terms, that's what he was doing. And he and I, on a very long elevator ride, had a conversation about it, because I'll talk to literally anybody. And this guy with a thick Chinese accent told me his dream was to work at NASA. And so I asked him, well, then why don't you go work there? And his answer was so obvious. I didn't even think of it at the time. To work at NASA, you must be an American citizen, as it should be, right? Like, why would our government employ foreign nationals, especially from countries that are our adversaries? And that makes perfect sense. That's the way it's been for a long time. That is the government's policy, is you cannot hire someone from a foreign country to do a job that an American can do. Good. That makes perfect sense to me. Well, on August 24th, the Department of Justice announced they were filing a lawsuit against Elon Musk's company. No, not Twitter, not X, not Tesla. SpaceX, Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, for discriminating against asylum seekers and refugees in their hiring practices. Now, my head exploded all over the wall. You're telling me we're suing a private company for not hiring immigrants, asylum seekers, refugees, call them what you want. I would say that this is a gray area for whether you're here legally or not. You could call them illegal immigrants. Maybe that's not the correct technical term in this case, but migrants nonetheless aren't getting jobs at SpaceX, but they couldn't work at NASA. They couldn't work at the Federal Department of Space Exploration that Joe Biden is in charge of. So today I just noticed here that the Center for Immigration Studies has an article about this very issue. And sitting right in front of me live in studio is the executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies, Mark Krikorian. Mark, make this make sense, please.
I wish I could, but I'm not sure I can even make it make sense. SpaceX thought that they were required as a defense contractor to only hire U.S. citizens or green card holders, who are themselves still foreign nationals because they haven't become U.S. citizens yet. But once they have a green card, you're almost like an associate member, of the American people. You're not quite an American yet. And so there wasn't an example of a refugee or an asylum seeker who hadn't gotten a green card yet, who was turned down for a job. They have in other words, they're not filing this lawsuit on behalf of somebody who applied for a job and didn't get it. They're just retaliating against Elon Musk for being against the administration is basically what it amounts to.
I can't think of any other explanation than that.
Of course not.
Because sometimes it's just so transparent.
Yep.
What is going on? It's so crystal clear, just abundantly. It's like all the different indictments against Trump.
Right.
Would they exist if he wasn't running for office?
Of course not.
The vast majority of them, I think, would not. Maybe a couple, probably not most.
Right.
And in this case, you got Elon Musk, a guy that is supplying a service to our federal government, which we previously paid Russia an absurd amount of money to supply to us.
Right.
And people forget that we're in a war right now with Russia. I mean, maybe you think it's a proxy war. It's not.
Right.
We're directly involved in that war. So we can't, in good consciousness, keep giving money to Russia to get us to and from the International Space Station. That was Obama's policy.
Right.
Imagine how much money Obama gave Russia. I hate to get off subject here, that they're now probably using in their military budget to go to war with us in Ukraine. But not, getting back to the thing here with Elon Musk. Elon Musk's biggest crime is that he is the poster boy for the American dream. A foreign nationalist came here, built an incredible business, employed lots of people, became the richest guy in the world. You would think on its surface that this would be a guy that Joe Biden would love, but it's really not the case, is it?
No, and it's not like even really a conservative, you know what I mean, or a Republican.
No, he's a
just,
centrist.
Yeah, he's just not part of the team, basically the Biden team, and is willing to say stuff that they don't want to hear. And so they're basically, you can only imagine they're sort of sitting around saying, what can we do to get after this guy, to give him problems? And somebody said, hey, why don't we, go after SpaceX for this?
So you're not an attorney. I don't think I'm
No.
not an attorney either. And I play one on the radio, but I don't see how he broke the law. There's some policy that says that to be a contractor to the federal government, you need to give jobs to illegal immigrants or refugees.
No, it's actually, the law says that unless there are specific exceptions, you are prohibited from discriminating against anybody with a work permit, even if they're basically illegal aliens with work permits. You can't say, yeah, we're not going to hire you. We're going to hire an American instead. And so the question is, do they fall under the exceptions that would apply to defense contractors? Because that's what they do. That's the legal issue. I don't know. It could even be that they violated some rule, in which case you tell them, okay, here's your fine, and let's get on with it.
Do you think Elon could afford that?
Yeah, I don't know. He might have to. Well, after spending $44 billion for Twitter, maybe not anymore. I don't know.
That's a great question. I don't know. All right, so you're from the Center for Immigration Studies. There's a similar group that does something like what you guys do, but it's a little different. They're called the Federation for American Immigrant Reform.
Immigration Reform, yeah.
Excuse me, thank you. Federation for American Immigration Reform. They're known as FAIR. And one of the things they do every year is they try to calculate the cost of illegal immigration. And this includes things like law enforcement, healthcare, sheltering these people, sending their kids to college. We spend a lot of money on illegal immigration. According to FAIR, it's about $150.7 billion annually. I love the 0.7 is in there, just for good measure there. As a guy, you guys don't quite do the same studies that they do, but does that figure make sense to you? Do you believe that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense. Again, I mean, I'm not, we haven't taken apart that particular number, but absolutely it does. Because let me just give you one example why. Half of households headed by immigrants are using at least one federal welfare program.
Yeah.
Half of them. Now, for the native born, it's alarmingly, it's like 30%. So that's pretty alarmingly high already. And this isn't because immigrants are coming here to rip us off. Most of them are just regular people. Most of them, I mean, they almost all have jobs. But if you're a sixth grade dropout from Honduras and you're working in the United States, how much money can you earn? Not a lot. How much taxes are you paying? Not very much. And the jobs that you get pay so little, you're not even able to feed your kids without the taxpayer paying for them. So this isn't an issue of immigrants ripping us off. This is an issue of an immigration policy that is a mismatch with what a society like ours would need.
All right, we're talking about the cost of illegal immigration, and there's a report from back in March from the New York Post, and it claims that illegal immigration is costing New Yorkers $10 billion this year. It's costing them $10 billion in one single year. Now, another report today from John Nolte talks about how Americans, New York Democrats are spending $10,000 a month to care for illegal migrants. And I think the difference here being in one report, the $10 billion annually in New York State that's going towards illegals is coming from taxpayers. But apparently Democrats are literally paying in the city of New York City, like reaching of their own money, of their willfully spending $10,000 each month per asylum seeker. That's insanity to me. If the site fills all of its 2,000 beds, New York taxpayers will dole out $20 million a month to house migrants on Randall's Island. Okay, here, it explains it here. That comes out to $10,000 per asylum seeker per month if they fill all of the 2,000 beds. Now I almost think that number seems a little low compared to what it probably costs.
Could be, yeah. I mean, if you figure it's $120,000 a year to support somebody, it seems like a lot. I mean, I could, if I had to, I could live on less than $120,000 a year myself, So, but, part of this, a lot of this is problems that New York and other cities have brought on themselves. Not only are they sanctuary cities and they, reject the legitimacy of enforcing immigration law, but in New York particularly, they have this requirement that anybody who says, hi, I need you to give me somewhere to live and you have to pay for it. Yeah. They have to do it. So, they used to say that in the 60s, a conservative is a liberal who gets mugged. Well, they're sort of getting mugged by reality here, at least with regard to immigration. And we'll see if, so far, they haven't called for any changes in immigration policy. They've just bellyached and wanted more money from taxpayers. But maybe at some point they'll wake up to the need to actually change immigration policy itself.
Yeah. I, like you, just wonder at what point is the tipping point here, because in Texas, I can remember over a decade ago when I moved here, brought a U-Haul down from Chicago with all my possessions in it, pulled up to the place to drop off the U-Haul. And I'd never seen anything like this before. Just dozens of migrants. I mean, we have that kind of in Chicago, but not like we have it in Houston, where there's just dozens of people standing outside the Home Depot, standing outside the U-Haul facility, looking for a job. Now, that's the way it's been down here for years, decades, if we're being honest. Up in New York City, where there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people from other countries, it's amazing to me. It kind of blows my mind, Mark, that it wasn't until very recently that they just started to have the issue where they don't know what to do with all these migrants. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. Eric Adams, the mayor there, is so vocal about this. And I wonder if he, A, cares as much as he says he does, and if, B, this is just a cash grab for him.
Yeah, I think a part of it's a cash grab, but it really is causing them practical problems and political problems. And, I think the reason this is happening, it's not like New York didn't have illegal aliens before, but under Biden, this administration has taken into custody and released into the United States about 2.5 million illegal aliens so far. 2.5 years, about 2.5 million illegal aliens, more than legal immigration now. And so...
Say that again. That's baffling.
This administration has been in power for about 2.5 years. Biden was inaugurated January 2021. And in that time, they have taken into custody. These aren't people who snuck by the Border Patrol. These are people who were turned themselves in or were arrested and then let go.
Sure,
dropped off at the
release.
bus station in McAllen or something. Catch and release. 2.5 million people.
Which is more than
legal immigration in that same period of time. So the main way of coming to the United States under Joe Biden is to sneak across the border.
Mark Krikorian is here right now. He is the executive director for Center for Immigration Studies, a man with a lot of fascinating and frankly terrifying information about our border crisis. We're going to talk more with him after this. We're going to actually talk about the violence, the inhumane things that are happening at our border, stuff that CNN isn't going to talk about. We'll be right back.
According to a new report, exaggerated statements are up by like 1 billion%. And now more of the highest rated show on radio, Kenny Webster's Pursuit of Happiness.